Managed to snap one of these bolts. Can't buy it anywhere. It's a very specific bolt, so it's time to head to the junkyard. We're looking for R11. There we go. And that's our guy right there. Okay, so that's the bolt that actually snapped off right there. And this looks to be a part of the water pump. It's not actually a part of the thermostat housing like I was hoping. So I'm not exactly sure what to do about that. Let's see. It does go all the way through. So maybe I can grab it and pull it out of there. All right, so here's the plan. I've got both the bolts on the same one there. I have to loosen that one, and it can't go anywhere because that one's there. So I'm gonna have to try and hold this with my right hand and turn that with my left hand against each other. That's the bar I need. And I've got these tightened up against each other so tight that they can't move anywhere. And so it doesn't matter which nut I choose, you can see the white bar there is moving. So all I have to do now is just loosen this guy up, and it'll take that white bar out of there, and then I can work on the other bar. Got it. Heck yeah. So here's a better view of it. I had these two nuts and the bar that was in there. And all I did was I tied this nut backwards. Then that one on top of it, and tightened them up towards each other. And then they're stuck. Then you just loosen up this back one, and it loosens up this because it has nowhere to go. There it is. And you can see here in the process of doing all this, this nut seems to be fine because it didn't get a lot of attention. That one is stripped up. So I'm gonna have to go find another car with another nut on it. All right, so now we're gonna go check out R15. Here's our guy. They're taken. No nuts here. Going to R30. Hope it's not that one or this one. All right, here's our guy. And now for the secret car. When I got here, I asked them to look up Toyota Camrys. So they did, and they found 3. That was it. And the 3 that we went to, I got most of what I needed. But the secret 4th one is not even a Toyota Camry, it's a RAV4. When you go to the website and look up their parts, they will sometimes tell you parts that are interchangeable with other vehicles. And it turns out that the Toyota RAV4 has the same water pump, which is what I looked up, as the Camry. All right, so in the end, we made it out with a radiator cap. Looks like an original one. We got various fuses, 2 water pump spokes, and 2 thermostat housing nuts, and a little fitting to hold up a metal piece that's hanging down on the front of her car. And they just gave it to us all for free because this is basically worthless junk. But to us, it's going to mean the difference between a broken car and a working car. Well, I have an easy out, so I'm going to try using that. This thing is so stuck in there. I got a little T-bar on the end of my easy out. It's so stuck in there it won't budge. And you can see I bent my bar. This thing is terrible. Oh my God. You can see how far in the easy out it's getting. It's going to about there, and it is not taking it out. So since that guy wasn't putting enough torque on it, I'm gonna try it with this thing, which I lost a piece to inside the car, but I found it, and I'll put it back in. All right, so nothing's working. Doesn't matter which set of tools I'm using. I tried increasing, decreasing the size. I tried getting a different number of threads here, and I tried tapping it. I tried spraying penetrating fluid, so now I'm gonna try getting the aluminum a little bit hot, and hopefully the steel bolt inside, which won't expand and the aluminum will, hopefully that'll give it enough for me to turn this thing out. Nope, didn't work. Got it very hot. You can see that all the fluid dried up in here. Started burning things a little bit, so didn't want the aluminum to bubble, so I stopped. And this whole thing is very, very warm right now. That's extremely hot, but it is not turning. I tried hitting it with a hammer. I tried all kinds of stuff, and it's just not turning at all. You know, it's to the point where I would think that this is accidentally screwed into the aluminum, and that's why I can't go anywhere, but I know it's not for a fact. I've looked very closely at it, and it's got plenty of sidewall for this to grab onto. I finally got a setup that worked. I went a size bigger, I drilled out more of it, and I pushed this guy that far in there. Just quite a bit more than I got off of anything else. I used this tool, and it gave it just enough grab to be able to turn in there. Unfortunately, it was going into the bolt just fine. It was going into the bolt, but the bolt wasn't moving. This is tapered. As it went further and further in there, eventually it cracked. It just expanded the zone until it cracked. You can see that it was clearly in the bolt. And let's take a look at what happened to our cutting tool. Did it cut or did it get cut? It got cut. Didn't cut the threads it needed to. Instead, it got sheared completely off. All right, so I got it back together and it is not leaking anywhere. I'm very happy with it. So I'm gonna show you what I did. I didn't take video while I was doing it. I'm not set up with that kind of camera, so I did the best I could. But this guy is in a new hole that I drilled out and rethreaded. And the way that I did that was I got a kit online for 13 bucks, which came with all of these things. So I went to Home Depot and I brought the old bolt with me and I tightened it into their little wall of stuff. And this particular amount of threads happened to be an M6 1.0. So knowing that that was an M6 1.0, I ordered a kit from the internet. This is a bit that is bigger than an M6 1.0. The way to drill this all out, you have to remove the old bolt, because if you don't remove the old bolt, which is right here by the way, the old bolt is too tough of a metal to do this process on, and it'll just ruin the threads on your rethreader bit. So drilled out a bigger hole, used this lubricant, cutting oil, to make it go a lot easier and not break the bit, not shred too much. Then I had this rethreader, also used the cutting oil on the rethreader. I popped this guy into this holder, which I have from a different rethreading kit. Tightened it up nice, and then turned it around and around to get the hole threaded. And then I popped one of these little springs into the hole, and you can see it came with a whole bag, but this spring goes in there. There's a little flat, or there's a little cross piece in the back there, which you can see that there's a little notch here also. So what you do is you pop this tool onto the end of the screw, and then you twist it in there. And once it's fully twisted in, you take this little piece here and you hammer that little end piece off, and it'll break because that little cut that's in there. So that's how the whole system works. Now in my case, I actually wanted that end piece to stay on because it gave me a stopping place. So anyways, it worked out. I've got it back together, tested it, and it's not leaking, so I'm very happy with it. Now I had a little wiggle room in here because the space that I was filling actually has enough space for 2 of those springs to go into, but instead of getting all fancy with all that stuff, I just put the one in there. The wiggle doesn't really matter for this particular thing, just because of the way that the inside of this is designed on this vehicle. But other vehicles it might matter, so you know, you might need to get a little fancier with it. But you can see that in order to get to that and drill it out and everything, I had to remove the AC compressor. I had to remove the belt that attaches a few things in here. I had to remove the alternator, as well as, you know, I had to get this bolt out. I had to get this bracket taken off of there. And now I just got to put it all back together, plug things back in where they belong, and it should be totally done. This is just a really hard to reach spot on this vehicle. All right, there's no squeaking coming from that belt, but I think it's a little bit loose. So I just have to tighten this nut up a little bit and it'll bring it up. But before I tighten that, I have to loosen the bracket below and the bracket above so that it has wiggle room. But another half a turn on this and it should be tight enough. I also don't really like this. See that tag? It's getting real close there. Yep, it's starting to squeak a little bit. So it's just a little bit too loose. Still not seeing any fluid leaking out of that spot there. The fans are both turning, so those are plugged back in properly. No leaks out of the bottom yet. That's good news. No leakage here. I don't see any leakage down there on the bottom hose yet. But we'll see once it gets hot enough and it turns over. All right, we're good. We got it all tightened up properly, no leaks. So I'm just gonna have to clean up and I'm all done.